All right, everyone. I think we're ready to get started. Thanks so much for joining us today for Searching for Travelers, Overcoming Google's Hidden Query Data and Other Innovations in the Search Engine Results page. We're excited to be presenting this for you today. I'm Ryan Gibson. I'm the EVP of Marketing Strategy for RKG. I've been with RKG for almost 8 years, working through paid and online marketing strategies for our clients and speak at many industry events. You may have seen us at PhoCusWright in the past, which will be there again in a couple of weeks down in Fort Lauderdale. So excited for that as well. So you know a little bit more about RKG. We're a data-driven online marketing agency focused around paid search and search engine optimization since 2003. We also manage comparison shopping engines and feed management. We do display advertising, social media management, and we also have our own proprietary Blueprint search analytics platform for uncovering opportunities in SEO. And so we'll be sharing some of that information today as we're focusing on the traveler search experience, their discovery process as they're going through travel research, understanding the search engine portion of that, so thinking about the big three, Bing, Yahoo, and Google, but specifically Google and their how their changing results pages have affected us all. And then we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A. Joining me today, I have Marcello Gasdia, the Consumer Research Analyst for PhoCusWright. Marcello has a background in applied market research, and today he's going to take a quantitative approach to understanding the travel research process, just as he does with PhoCusWright's consumer research projects, including research design, implementation, and his statistical analysis of the industry. So we're excited to have you here, Marcello. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Great. Before we jump into Marcello's portion and kind of set the stage for consumer research, travel research, wanted to ask a polling question to get an idea of who we have on the call today. So is your role focused on search engine optimization or increasing the digital visibility of your brands at your organization? So yes, no, or I wear so many hats. It depends on the day that you ask me. So it's always good to get an idea of who we have joining us for the conversation so we can kind of take a look at that. So it sounds like we have quite a mix of folks today. So about half the audience seems to be focused on search engine optimization, and about most of the other half, maybe not quite a half, has a mixed bag of hats that they're wearing depending on the moment. And I think that's one of the things that's become so interesting in when we're talking about search engine optimization is that even if you are involved with that as a role in your organization, it touches so many different areas that you can't exclusively focus on that anymore. You really have to be aware of the other marketing channels, other aspects, other efforts that you're putting forth. So Marcello is going to jump into talking about an overview of the overall travel research process and what consumers are looking at today. So Marcello, what kind of trends are you seeing in online travel shopping these days?
The travel search shop buy process, it's perpetually in a state of change. I think there's two drivers for that. One is the industry and online travel retailers on this kind of never-ending quest to fix online travel or improve online travel with new functionality and new business models. And the other end of it, there's this consumer behavior that's perpetually changing pretty dramatically with all the new technology adoption going on these days. I'm willing to bet most of the people listening in have booked a vacation online in the past few years. And I'm sure we'll all agree that while shopping and planning a getaway can be really exciting and enjoyable, it's not the easiest online purchase you're going to make all year, right? Especially those really big trips. On the supply side, you have what seems like an endless array of destination, hotel, flight, car, cruise, and package travel options, and then a bunch of online channels to get your research done, whether it's an online travel agency like Priceline or Expedia, or a hotel or airline website, flash deal site, travel review websites like TripAdvisor or travel meta search like Kayak. the list goes on. And I'm sure most of you will guess that online search engines like Google and Yahoo play a big role in bringing all this content together for online travel shoppers. But exactly how important are search engines for U.S. online leisure travel shoppers? We're going to take a broad look at the online online travel shopping behavior and get a sense of where search engines fit into this bigger picture. Let's start off by taking a bird's eye view of the market. So, including corporate and unmanaged business travel, as well as leisure travel, the total U.S. market is $281 billion. So obviously a massive industry, but for today's purpose, we're interested in those consumers who are shopping, booking, and planning leisure vacations online. So what part of this whole does that actually represent, specifically the leisure travel booked online? It's about 40%. So of the entire travel market, 4 out of every $10 spent in travel is spent online for leisure. For online travel companies, that means roughly $114 billion up for grabs every year, and we're projecting that number to grow steadily over the next few years with a few different drivers. One, of course, is that travel gross bookings overall are projected to show some moderate growth for the next few years as consumer leisure travel spending is taking a bit longer to really ramp up post-recession. And the other is the broader migration from offline to online booking that really hasn't lost too much steam just yet. You know, for a lot of us, when we think about how consumers book vacations, many assume that, you know, the overwhelming majority simply book online, but that's really not the case. A lot of travel, leisure travel, is still booked offline. So the percentage of U.S. leisure travelers who book exclusively online, so this is the percent of all U.S. leisure travelers who book exclusively through online channels, is still growing relatively quickly in the U.S. at 30% in 2010 and 37% in 2012. So every year, more and more cash flowing through online channels. The volume of online shopping traffic, however, has remained relatively consistent. So the percent of U.S. leisure travelers who touch at least one online channel while shopping for leisure travel has remained consistent and extremely high since 2010. So even if they're not always booking online, the overwhelming majority are at least shopping or doing some type of travel planning through online channels. Now, that's not to say that trends in online travel shopping are any bit calm or stagnant. We know the U.S. is home to a mature online travel market and that consumers have been shopping online for quite some time now. But since we are that mature market, we're also going to be among the first to kind of pave that way with channel shift towards mobile. Already, we're seeing that 23% of U.S. leisure travelers already own each of these devices. And we're starting to see this rapid adoption of mobile devices have a huge impact on how consumers are shopping for their vacations. When you look at it by device, already 14% of U.S. leisure travelers are shopping for travel products like flights and hotels on their smartphones. And even though significantly fewer own tablets, tablet owners we're seeing that they're very likely to replicate their desktop web behavior on these devices. So here we see tablet shopping already right behind smartphones at 13%. So tremendous shifts in online travel shopping as far as devices and hardware are concerned. But there's also this constant shift with content. For shoppers, price, of course, rules above all. One of the main draws of online travel shopping, and one of the biggest factors in the purchase decision, right, is price, especially for travel products like air. But we're also seeing, year after year, online shoppers consuming more and more information on top of just price to support them in their decision-making. The online shopping process is essentially becoming more complex every year, more using interactive maps, reading online reviews, watching travel videos, looking at photos, incorporating social media. So just generally soaking up more information while they shop for trips. And the big question here is where are they going online to find all this stuff, and how many are actually relying on search throughout this kind of increasingly complex shopping process. Well, the U.S. market is pretty unique. The online travel landscape here is dominated by powerhouse travel brands, right? You have your online travel agencies like Expedia and Priceline, and also major travel suppliers like Delta and Hilton that really resonate with consumers here. But the OTAs really offer consumers that huge breadth of content, and these OTAs are actually so entrenched in the U.S. market here that despite how many consumers use search engines like Google on a daily basis, when U.S. travelers go online to shop for one of their average of 3 trips they take every year, OTAs are often top of mind. There are actually more U.S. travel shoppers, shoppers who shop for travel online, they're actually more likely to visit an OTA while they shop for travel versus a general search engine. Almost 6 in 10 U.S. online leisure travel shoppers use an OTA to shop for vacations in 2012, compared to just about half who use search engines. Now again, this dynamic is somewhat unique to the U.S. market. When we look at a market like Europe, where individual travel brands are not as powerful, general search engines actually have the broadest reach over consumers, over OTAs in Europe. But again, the power of these brand name OTAs in the U.S. really does a lot to shape online behavior. That's not to say that they're invincible. And in fact, as I was saying, as I mentioned earlier, new business models are always vying for more online attention. The meta search model is a great example of this. It actually has strong implications for the role of search in online travel shopping. Now, despite the strength of OTAs in the U.S., meta search brands like Kayak and Hitmonk, who aggregate content from OTAs and travel suppliers, are really starting to break through and starting to gain rapidly. The percentage of online travel shoppers who actually use travel meta search engines has been skyrocketing for quite some time now, but especially over the past few years. It'll be interesting to see how this growth will impact this dynamic between search engines and OTAs in the future as well. And as popular as OTAs are in the travel shopping process, when you look specifically at mobile, which is a big trend happening now in travel shopping, consumer behavior is actually very different. On mobile, search engines take a huge lead. So 2/3 of mobile travel shoppers use a search engine, mobile website or app, compared to only 44% who use an OTA app or website when they're shopping for travel. Naturally, mobile is still that kind of newer frontier for many consumers, so they aren't as likely to have downloaded all the apps of their preferred travel brands. So you still see, on kind of this emerging mobile platform, you still see a lot of reliance on search engines during mobile travel shopping. So we have a sense of how many are using search and where they're using it. So let's move to specific search engines and dig a little bit into why and how they're using them, which brings us to our second polling question. Ryan?
Great. So what percentage of U.S. leisure travelers use Google to help them plan a trip in 2011? Was it 22%, 33%, 53%, or 78%? Get an idea of what people think. While the conversation's coming in here, Marcello, we have a question asking about the meta search slide showed a decrease in use with 28% in 2012. Is that correct, or has it seen more growth?
No, meta search has definitely seen more growth throughout the past 3 years among U.S. travel shoppers. Definitely not a decrease, and a lot of that is driven by Kayak, as most of you might guess.
Got it. So it looks like the majority of folks, 43% of people, said that they think the answer is 78%. Let's see if they're right.
Well, you guys are definitely on the right track. As many of you might have expected, Google casts a pretty large shadow over its competitors, slightly over half, so the answer was 53%. So a lot of you got it. 53% of U.S. leisure travelers use Google to plan their trips, compared to 21% on Yahoo and 14% on Bing. But we all know that Google is just a huge search engine. But I think what's even more interesting, some even more interesting insight here. One is how many leisure travelers use Google during their day-to-day. It hit 91%. So almost your entire leisure travel audience is a Google user, not specifically for travel planning, but just for daily things like checking email and just doing regular search queries throughout the day. And of course, this is a big reason why the platform is so important. Also interesting to note here, general Yahoo usage. Again, not travel planning, but day-to-day usage of Yahoo. Here you have a little over 56% so of using Yahoo as well. So as important as Google might be, travel companies who neglect other search channels are really losing some visibility across a large portion of their audience. The travel products shoppers look for when using search engines strongly mirrors general travel purchasing trends. So in the U.S., roughly 9 in 10 leisure travelers will stay in some form of paid lodging at least once every year. And significantly fewer, about 60%, will fly. So naturally, hotel search dominates over air search. Here we have 77% of travelers who use search engines to plan travel searching for hotels versus only 58% on air. And on top of that, when you think about it, travelers really consume a lot more information when making a hotel decision compared to air. They're more involved researching pictures, prices, hotel amenities, room options, user reviews, maps. So overall, more likely to use search as a jumping off point to explore all this hotel content. A product like air, on the other hand, is a little more of a utility product, right? Serve up a consumer some cheap airfare, and that's enough for many to make a purchase decision. But overall, we do see more travelers using search engines for hotel, both because of the volume and the complexity of hotel purchases. And more often than not, when online shoppers use a site like Google to plan trips online, they're using it to help them guide them to relevant content, almost to help them navigate the web, because this isn't always the case, right? Very often, consumers know exactly where they want to go, but they don't have a site like Expedia or Kayak bookmarked, or they don't want to type in the full, entire web address. So they go to Google, type in the first few letters, and let the search bar autocomplete, and then they're on their way. And naturally, no amount of SEO or paid advertising is going to help you out with that search user who knows their exact destination. But we generally see that online travel shoppers who use search are more of an open book. So 6 in 10 agree that they would have a difficult time planning travel online without the help of a search engine. And 4 in 10 would likely not visit travel websites or new websites unless they appeared in search engine results. In addition to that, when you look at the top drivers of search engine use during travel planning, it really paints the picture that search users are generally malleable. The 2 drivers that float up to the top here, I'd like to check a broad range of websites, and I trust search engines to guide me to useful websites. So really, travelers are using search to kind of explore content. When you factor in that the average U.S. leisure traveler is only taking 3 trips per year, this isn't a shopping routine that they take on very often. So they're looking for engines to kind of guide them. So overall, very important for online travel companies and online retailers to stay on top of changes in search, including how Google is changing their algorithms and implementing new search features in order to maintain kind of visibility among this very impressionable traffic. And to give you some insight on how to do that, I'm going to go pass the ball back over to Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcello. I really appreciate that. A lot of great insights there. I think one of the questions that came across from some of the research, one of the questions is when you're thinking about when you're looking at travel planning and you're talking about these things, are you including searches for hotels and restaurants and things to do, or is it more exclusively looking at flights or choosing a specific destination?
Yeah, so we look at everything in three distinct phases. There's destination selection, where we kind of take that separately, and all of the search data that was specifically kind of towards the end there had that destination selection kind of component to it. But all the broader stuff I talked about, all the broader data that I presented on travel planning is specifically comparing and choosing hotels and flights. So not destinations, specifically comparing and choosing travel products, your flights, your car rentals, your packages, things like that.
Great. So it sounds like packages are included in that group, because I know that was another question.
Yeah, any leisure travel products.
Great. Well, thanks, Marcello. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit more about some of the specific changes in Google, specifically in the search engine results page. And we'll talk largely about Google because it kind of does represent the lion's share. But I think one of the interesting questions to kind of get this started off, do you feel that the changes that Google and others search engines make in the search engine results page tend to help the travel research process, or do you find it to be a hindrance? So yes, it helps. No, it doesn't, or I'm not sure. It just changes so fast. So give folks a second to answer here. And so it looks like the consensus is largely that folks do, yes, they feel about 42% of the audience feels that the changes in the search engine results page do help travelers. About 38% aren't sure, and I think that there are a lot of changes and things are changing all the time. I think that's one of the things that helps keep all of our jobs interesting at this point. And so, if you were to look at the Google search engine results page today, we see all the different variables, and we can talk about a couple components here, from the carousel that we see at the top to the knowledge graph to maps, and it's a far cry from where Google was in in the mid-90s. This is a recent screenshot of the Easter egg. If you Google in 1996, it shows you an example of what the search engine results page looks like. And I think even from that standpoint, looking at when the search engines first kind of came to be and gained popularity, even from that early point, people were trying to figure out how to optimize the algorithm, how to be seen in the rankings, and how to make that list, make that that top search engine results page. And I think one of the things that we've lost sight of is that it's not search engine optimization and kind of improving your overall digital visibility isn't about algorithms or rankings or keywords. When you think about SEO at the end of the day, it's really all about the user. You want to be able to identify the needs that the searcher has and be able to tie those back to hopefully your business offering, and how can you help to solve the problem that potential customer or that searcher has. And I think starting from that standpoint is really where we have to be when we're thinking about SEO. So to echo some of what Marcello was talking about earlier, this is an example of data from our latest digital marketing report, our Q3 digital marketing report, showing one of the reasons that we're going to focus on Google today is because it is still the lion's share of organic traffic. We are seeing lately that Bing actually in Q3 had one of the larger increases in overall organic traffic share. I think it's up about 0.5% in Q3. And so what you have to think about here is when we look at Bing and Yahoo together, we're really still talking, though, about anywhere from, depending on the website, 10 to 30% of organic traffic coming through those channels. So even though throughout a lot of this we're going to use Google as illustrative points, when you're really thinking about the things that help you to connect with your users and connect with consumers, there are also strategies that apply across engines. At the end of the day, all the engines want to try and help surface information that's helpful to their users. And that's really where a lot of these changes that have come about lately have really come from. When we go back to a few years ago when Google released the Panda update, it was originally called the Farmer update, and this is really when Panda put a premium on original high-quality content and making sure that there wasn't a lot of duplication of content. So no longer could you just take the same content and distribute it out among the web. And this is really Google's effort to make sure that sites are more relevant and that they're adding values for their users. From a technical perspective, this wasn't a complete rewrite of the algorithm. This was an addition or an update to help make things more relevant and really kind of eliminate some of those notions of link farms, if you might recall. Then we came out with the next animal update that Google had, where Penguin put a premium on a natural linking and anchor text. And so what Penguin was trying to do is get away from this exact match anchor text where you're thinking about one specific keyword and tying links to that keyword. What this is really about is making sure that the links are relevant for the goals that the users are trying to achieve. And so, from an SEO perspective, we had to stop thinking about, how can I link to a specific keyword, but how can I provide a link that's going to be a valuable experience for my users and for searchers who align with what I have to offer. And then most recently, we had the Hummingbird update, which was announced a few weeks ago. It was actually out, for a month or so before Google made the announcement. And when we think about the change that Google made here, this is actually one of the largest algorithm changes that Google's made since the early 2000s. Some folks have even likened it to swapping out the engine on a car. And what Hummingbird does is it helps Google to better understand conversational search queries rather than basing queries on keywords. And the reason that Google wants to do this is, again, to better align with the way that searchers are performing searches, really. With Siri and with Google Now and with the proliferation of phones and other devices, there are more users who are searching through voice queries, posing questions to Google. So how can I, find a better route to Fort Lauderdale? And Google wants to be able to surface that information and surface it more quickly. And so we'll see, as we talk a little bit more, we'll talk about how Google's leveraging the Hummingbird algorithm to surface information from the knowledge graph and to connect people with these places and ideas that they have in the knowledge graph. And so one of the other most probably highly controversial or most highly discussed changes that Google has made in the past few years is this development of not provided data from an SEO query perspective. So what we see now, so all the way up through July, about 40% of the query data through analytics, we didn't have visibility into it. So as users were signed in to Gmail or to Google Plus as they were doing searches, Google was obfuscating those search queries for us. And then around September timeframe, we really saw that spike, and so the average of sites that we see now, there's typically about 80% of query data is not provided. So that's kind of a substantial amount, and so it really makes it difficult to continue to develop an SEO strategy around specific keywords, and so you have to kind of rethink how you think about that. And if you add to that the challenge of hidden referrer data from iOS devices. So when iOS 6 came out last year, one of the things it did was when users searched on their mobile device, on a mobile Apple device specifically, that query was shown as a direct load query. So we really we lost some visibility into how users were searching on mobile devices. And so this is something that we need to be aware of as we're looking at trends and data. Last quarter, Apple released iOS 7, which actually gave us some added visibility back to be able to see some of this referrer data, especially for iPhones. But as we're comparing data over time and looking at trends, we have to be aware of this change. And so one of the because so many of them, such a high percentage of mobile devices that we see come through are actually iPhone devices with smartphone and tablets are accounting for about 28% of organic search visits, and iOS devices in total account for about 19% of organic search visits in Q3. And so what we really have to do is stop thinking about optimizing websites or pages for keywords anymore. We need to start thinking about how we're performing from a topic perspective. So I had shown these queries earlier. As I mentioned, we'll be heading to PhoCusWright in Fort Lauderdale in a couple of weeks, and so these are a selection of searches that might be done. And if I am the Boston Diplomat where the event's being held, I might look at all these queries that are coming in and say, okay, how should I think about this data? And really, at this point, we want to be able to group this data into not specifically looking at a ranking of a keyword, but be able to look at rankings of topics or categories. And so how can we group this data together to better understand how our users are finding us? From a brand perspective, we obviously should be first and foremost when someone does a search for Weston Diplomat or best rates for Weston Diplomat. But then how do we perform when people are looking at the location or looking just specifically for hotels? Or even better yet, how do we perform when people are looking around events in our area? So being able to understand that is important. And as query data goes away, there are a couple ways that you, from Google Analytics or from your analytics packages, there are a couple ways that you can start to uncover query data. One way is looking at Google Webmaster Tools data. Google Webmaster Tools doesn't have the issue of not provided information. It actually shows you a sampling of the query data that you've gotten on a day-to-day basis. One of the tools that we have, Blueprint, actually helps to bring that data together and then categorize that information. By categorizing that information, not only you get a much better picture, as I mentioned, of the trend of how you've been performing for those sorts of queries. So how do I perform for event-type queries? How do I perform for general travel queries, or for when people are searching for more information about Fort Lauderdale? And because Google Webmaster Tools is actually surfacing this data through Blueprint, one of the things that we do is we're able to look at what is the mix of overall query, the overall query count that we're seeing for a specific category. How representative is that of the traffic mix for that category that we see through Google Webmaster Tools? We can start to understand how those queries are a little bit more long tail or have more of a mix of head terms. And we can start to take that sample data from Google Webmaster Tools and actually apply it against the overall traffic data from an analytics package and say, instead of this big mass of not provided information, if we're 80 or 90% not provided query data in our analytics package, we can take the data, in this case using Blueprint from Google Webmaster Tools, tie that across to that traffic volume and really understand what is the distribution of categories and how are we performing for those specific categories from a digital visibility perspective when we're thinking about raising our awareness in organic SEO. And so, to change gears just a little bit as we thinking about what other ways can we start to help to increase our visibility and increase our opportunities for awareness. I have a question for the group. Are you using Google Plus as part of your digital visibility or SEO strategy at this point? So yes, I am. Yes, but maybe not as well as I could be. No, and what's Google+? Give folks a moment to answer. Great. And it looks like we have at least half of the people are on the webinar, at least, are using Google Plus as part of their strategy, and I think that's really important. I think that one of the things that we really believe is that Google Plus matters. It matters because it can help you to stand out in the search engine results page. It matters because it can help Google better understand information about you as an advertiser, as a business. And it's definitely not necessarily about being a traffic source from Google Plus perspective. And so if you make the decision to participate in Google Plus or not based on whether it's a traffic source, you're getting a lot of direct visits, I think that that's kind of a limited view. Our most recent research shows that Facebook and Pinterest are certainly account for most of the majority of direct load to advertisers' websites, and by direct load I mean direct links from the social platform directly to an advertiser's website. Google Plus accounts for low single digits, around a little over 1%. But what this allows you to do is, by connecting information in Google Plus, it starts to change the search engine results page to highlight information in the search engine results page that's relevant for you and help you to stand out. So an example of that, this is an example of a global query that's just searching for content strategy, and this is not showing personalized results here. And then when I click in and change to a personal result, you see how that result at the bottom changes to show images. It's actually personalized to me because I'm connected to, or in this case, my colleague is connected to this author on Twitter. And so really what's important is, because your audience is using Google Plus, that really makes Google Plus important to you. And one of the reasons for that is, I think this is research done by eMarketer earlier this year. So which social networks have the most users? This one happens to break it out by gender, but I think the important point here is that Google Plus has more users than Pinterest and Twitter, and what that means is that these people are logged in while they're doing searches, and so their information, their connections, what they've liked or +1 on Google Plus, are going to have impacts on the results that they're seeing in the search engine results page. So what can we as advertisers, as travel advertisers, make sure that we're doing to take advantage of these opportunities? I think there are three core things that we can make sure that we're looking at, and we'll discuss a couple of them in more detail. But one, invest in your Google Plus brand page. Being able to maintain a presence there, keep content fresh. We'll talk about how you can use the Google Plus page to connect with, other pieces of information, including using authorship for your content. And I think in the travel industry, there's so many quality pieces of content where we're developing content for reviews, we're writing about trips, we're blogging, and very few of us, I think, are using authorship. And I'll show you here in a moment a way that you can use authorship to help you stand out on the search engine results page and help increase engagement with your presence there. And the other piece that we'll talk about is knowing your knowledge graph. And so a lot of what's available from Google Plus and your brand and the local information that you're providing helps to inform Google and share in that knowledge graph. And so we'll show how that's being surfaced in the search engine results page. So first, talking about authorship. So this is the opportunity for an individual to link their Google Plus profile with articles that they've written. And so one example of what that does is it highlights, it shows an image with the results that you see on the search engine results page. So in this case, my colleague, we did a search for advanced international SEO. My colleague Adam had written a great article on that topic, and so I clicked on the article, and you're able to read the article. But something special happens when you go back to if you hit the back button and bounce back to the search engine results page. What you actually find is that Google says, well, you've read this article, so if you don't bounce in a short period of time, but they allow you time to read the article, and so they actually consider that level of detail. But they'll present other articles that you might like. And what happens here is you'll see that they're not only articles on our website, these are also articles that appeared on other websites as well. And so what this does is it allows you to, as you have your authors connected with this content, as if that author writes for other publications or has other material out there, it can start to pull that together and help increase the overall discoverability of that author and that content. And so what we've seen with authorship is that it typically has in a lot of the research that we've done, we've seen a 10 to 40% increase in click-through rate, and this is all due to the combining content with that trusted relationship through Google+. We talked a little bit about the knowledge graph. This is an example here when I searched the Weston Diplomat. Google surfaces this specific data about the diplomat. Google has said that there are over 500 million objects and over 3.5 billion facts and relationships that are present in the knowledge graph. And this is all information that Google likes to surface on the search engine results page to help searchers more quickly find what they're looking for. It is certainly difficult to control what appears in the knowledge graph, but a couple of things that you can do, and probably the most important thing that you can do, is make sure that you're connecting, that you are focused on using Google+, and that you're connecting your Google+ page to your website using the rel publisher tag. And that's basically just a simple verification for your Google+ page so that Google understands that your Google+ page is indeed connected to your website. If you don't have this relationship set up, we'll typically see that Google is grabbing other local data and other information to populate the knowledge graph. But by using Google+, you're able to better offer Google the content that you'd like to see in the knowledge graph for your site. So the other piece is the Google Carousel, which we talked about, or I showed an example of earlier here. And this is a recent development that began showing up probably about 14 months or so ago, was officially launched in the U.S. In June of this year. And the carousel is simply an area in the search results page that's used to pull in information from, information from the knowledge graph and from Google Maps, basically where Google is helping to encourage interaction with this. It provides a little bit of a consistent experience between what they're providing on a desktop and what they're providing on the touchscreen devices like tablets. So you can see how that's somewhat engaging. Right now, the carousel tends to be limited to restaurants and hotels and attractions, but obviously the way that Google tests, we're likely to see that expand beyond just this subset of suppliers. And so a couple of ways that you can make sure that that you have an opportunity to show up here is ensuring that your Google Maps listing is verified and that you have relevant categories specified that will help you show up for some of those local searches. Also, the other piece that we've seen have an impact here is having a high quantity and high quality of review data. Again, this ties back to focusing on the customer, making sure that they are having good experiences, and making sure that they are talking about those experiences on Google, and that's going to help you to be shown on Google Plus, on the Carousel. And of course, location plays a key part in that as well. And so a lot of times you'll see that Google's notion of a location may be a city center or something like that. And so there is a factor of proximity that goes into the, seems to go into the rankings in the Carousel as well. So how do we use this information? And, I think that the lesson here is, while you need to implement the correct technical pieces like rel publisher, et cetera, to make sure that Google understands your site and your business, ultimately it's about developing content that helps your users. So one of the things to think about is, as you're starting this process, or as you're thinking about this process and how to get more visibility, don't think about the search engine results page, or don't think about the end result. Think about your potential customers, and think about the searchers, and what are the goals of your searchers, and how can you help them to better find what they need. And in order to do that, we typically recommend that you start to think about personas. And so a lot of marketing departments will have personas developed for their businesses. But taking those one step further and understanding, what are the different sorts of people that are going to be searching for services or offerings that you have. So maybe I'm looking for a family vacation. Maybe I'm doing more of making more of a business booking, or trying to find the best price on a hotel for my colleague. By setting up these scenarios, you can go to that next step of developing an actual persona for that person, understanding what is their sample set of queries likely to be, and then working from that to help understand how we can help her accomplish her task. So all the way, we need to keep a priority on what the user is looking for, and what we can do to help her achieve his or her goals. Throughout that process, we want to know why she's going to take the steps on our site or in our business, and kind of what are those success metrics. And so by starting with the individual or the searcher, you're going to get a lot farther than trying to focus on gaming the search engine results page, if you will. So even though a booking is going to be your end result, really understanding who your audience is, what are they searching for, what are they talking about, where are they, and what sort of devices are they going to be on, and helping to surface what your audience wants through search or social engagement is really what's going to help you get to that ultimate booking that you desire. So to kind of wrap up here, I think when we're thinking about this and increasing your visibility in search, think about the customer first, last, and always. Focus on topics and categories that you should be connecting with consumers with, rather than keywords or queries. Understand your customers' overall goals, and understand how you can align your business goals with their needs. And then focus on content that benefits your audience. You're going to stay much further ahead of changes in the search engines, and have a better opportunity to connect with your customers by doing that, rather than by chasing algorithms or trying to beat changes in the search engine results page. So I appreciate taking your time. I think we've got a few questions. We have time for a few questions here. So if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to, for myself or Marcello, you can feel free to pass them through the questions box here in GoToWebinar. So one of the questions that we had come in, for authorship, does that apply to blogs only? No, it doesn't really matter. It's a good question, and we typically do see it implemented more with blogs, but it can apply to any sort of authored content or any sort of content where you want to put an author to it. So that could be reviews or blogs, and so where you have that opportunity is if you have where that can help is if you have a guest post, for example, or a guest article somewhere on your, or guest review somewhere on your site, and being able to leverage authorship that either the author already has or encouraging that to take place can help to make your site more discoverable. I think a question here for maybe perhaps Marcello has a answer here. You've talked about a couple of the other meta search players. One of the questions on here is, do you know anything about Travel Pony, and do you have any thoughts?
Travel Pony, not too familiar with that brand, so I don't have much to contribute there. I think the whole meta model. I mean, it's not only taking off here, but it's taking off globally. A big part of that Priceline acquiring Kayak, looking to push it in Europe. You have gigantic meta search brands that have established themselves in Europe, looking to kind of push them over, to kind of push into the U.S. Something that comes to mind is a company like Skyscanner. So I think there's a lot to be written about where meta search is going, and I think there's going to be a lot of companies. Again, I'm not familiar with this particular one you pointed out, but I think there are going to be a lot of companies that are going to try to get in and kind of muscle their way, not only into OTA space, but you're going to see a lot of competition between meta search in the years to come. Absolutely.
Great. I think another question that we have that you might be able to help with, Marcello, is just directionally speaking. We've talked a lot about, I know in your piece, talking about the leisure traveler research. Do you have any thoughts on how that compares to business traveler research? I know from my limited perhaps experience and research, it tends that sometimes the leisure traveler takes a little bit more time, perhaps, or at least that's my hypothesis, as they might, especially if there's not a lot of if there's some economic uncertainty, people seem to say, okay, I know I'm going to take this vacation. It can't be a miss. It has to be just right for my family and my friends. How does the business research compare to that, do you think?
Yeah, we do a study, a similar study of leisure travel on business travel in the U.S. roughly every 2 years, and we're kind of staging to get ready and go into some key markets in Europe. And whenever you look at behavior of business travelers versus leisure travelers, especially on the technology side and shopping, you're going to see a huge use of mobile devices and smartphones, and technology adoption goes through the roof. It's actually it's very different when you look at a business traveler who's traveling for leisure much more often than the average leisure traveler, and he's also traveling for business, much more familiar with the process. And so, you just see technology adoption go through the roof, and it's actually, I know it's kind of a broad question, but, it's definitely different behavior from one to another.
Great. Thanks, Marcello. To let everyone know, I'm getting a lot of questions asking if this is going to be available after the fact. Yes, we've recorded the presentation, and we'll be sending it out later this week. If you have other questions, you can certainly feel free to reach out to me, and I can pass them along to Marcello, Ryan at rimkaufman.com, or on Twitter at Ryan D. Gibson. You can also find our company on Twitter at rimkaufman. And you can also, if you're interested in some more search data that we have, you can also download our latest digital marketing report at rkg.co/DMR. And that has paid search, display, all sorts of different channels on there. I think we have time for one last question, and I think there's a question specifically asking about independent hotels. kind of asking about how Carousel can relate to those. And so, I think that making sure that you have you verified your map listings and you are encouraging, even if you're an independent hotelier, I think that encouraging ratings and reviews from your clients. There are so many more local searches now, I think, and that there's going to be more opportunity to appear from that perspective. And so I think you can follow the same, a lot of the same best practices that you see, whether you're an independent hotelier or whether you're part of a larger chain. There's still that local component that's really going to be important for searchers. So, great. Thank you so much. If you have some other questions, we may not have gotten to them today, but we'll be sure to follow up on anything that we can provide some good answers for. Marcello, thank you very much for your time and for your participation in the webinar.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you have a great day.